one of the 4 founders, the only one who's still active with the association. And I'm also the chairman of the board of the Moscow chapter of CERBA. We have 9 chapters across Canada and across Eurasia. Eurasia being Russia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan for us. We also have a presence and activities in Ukraine, in Armenia, and in Azerbaijan, but we don't have chapters there, registered chapters. We do have chapters in Russia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. We're here today as the guest of Intermark Relocation. I'm so happy that Marina Simonova could host us today. Now, Marina can't be with us. We are hosted instead by Ruslan Hukiatov, the PR and marketing manager of Intermark Relocations. Ruslan, I believe you're on. You're listed as Intermark Relocation, correct? Is that your little? There we go.
In Cosmos.
Okay. So anyway, Ruslan, thank you so much for being the host at today's event. I'll quickly go over the reglement. By the way, am I supposed to be speaking Russian or English? Is it English? Okay, great. У меня английский как родной. So my English is very good.
Sure.
I can tell you that we have 3 top-notch speakers today. I am pleased, but I guess before I introduce the speakers, I will talk about the reglement, the rules that we're going to follow. So we're not going to turn on video or audio for any of the participants. The only people with video and audio will be the panelists and the leaders, people on our distinguished panel at the front of the room, as it were. If you have questions, however, we would invite you to write them in the chat. If you're familiar with Zoom, you know that there's a menu along the lower part of the Zoom menu, the Zoom screen, where you can press on the word chat and type your question in. I will be the moderator, so I will be gathering the questions, and we will have one maximum of 2 questions after each speaker, and then we will have a more extended question and answer period at the end of the event. The event is scheduled to end at 11:30. We might be 4 or 5 minutes late since we started late, but we'll see how that goes. So if you do have questions, I encourage you to write them in the chat, and I will moderate the questions. Our distinguished speakers today are Andrey Lukash, the head of legal department of Intermark Relocation. Raise your hand, Andrey. Yeah. We also have Olga Makeshina, the director for immigration services of Intermark Relocation. Olga, where are you? Hello, Olga. And our third speaker is Diederik Arnold, the director of Occupiers Solutions for the company ILM. Diederik, say hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to all 3 of you. These are our 3 distinguished panelists and speakers. You can read their bios if you would like to click on the link to this event. You can find the background for each of these individuals. I won't be reading them out loud in order to save time. And instead, we will dive right into it. May I give the floor to Andrey Lukash, the head of legal department. Is that the correct order, by the way? We're going to have Andrew, then Olga, then Diederik, correct?
No. I
Okay.
will be the last. The ladies will be the last.
Okay, so I'll be starting with Andrey, though.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, very good. So, we'll start with Andrey Lukash, the head of legal department, Intermark Relocation. And could you please tell us the themes you're going to be talking about and how they relate to the issues of migration that are so pressing, or real estate, I should say, that are so pressing to all of us today in these very strange times we live.
Yeah, Nathan, thank you so much. I'd like everybody to mute your phones. Yeah, thank you, because I can hear my voice. First of all, I'll say just 2 words about Intermark. I think you know Intermark. There are about 150 employees in our company, and we'd like to say hello from this picture. There are 40 relocation consultants, and we work in 10 CIS countries, and we also work in Eastern Europe, and we are members of several big worldwide organizations and organizations in Russia. For example, we're a member of European Association of Business, American Chamber of Commerce. We've got Euro Quality Seal certification, and there is our map. You can see that we work in Russia and also work in Kazakhstan, Armenia, Georgia, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova. We provide all services in relocation sphere. First of all, of course, relocation service like home finding, orientation tours. We support our clients with immigration support, and we help them with all questions in this sphere, and Olga will tell about immigration. We provide moving services. We make outstaffing employer in record, so-called, and we also do other services like language training, marketing reports, and there are lots of new services like Intermark Duchess. Maybe you know that we help our clients to find temporary accommodation out of Moscow. It was very popular this summer, and for example, in the end of summer, we started cleaning service. So we try to provide our clients with all services that needed from expats. Well,
I used your cleaning service. I was the first person to use your cleaning service. I loved it.
yeah, and we're very pleased to provide you with this service. Yeah, I'm head of legal department, but I'm also the project manager. So I have to say that cleaning service is my project, and so I'm very pleased that you're happy with this service.
And it was
Well,
way more expensive than I would have paid my cleaning lady. It was the same price that I paid my cleaning lady, which surprised me. I thought it would be more expensive.
yeah, great. I will tell a few words about Moscow housing market. Of course, about dwelling market. So each year, when we prepare a discussion on the state of market, we make an overview of major trends and indicators, and we try to make forecasts for the future. It's not a secret that this year is very different from previous years. Even when Russia became under international sanctions and expats were leaving the country, we could still predict market trends, and our forecasts came true. But now we're in condition that can barely be managed, and no one knows how exactly the situation will change within a year or even within a half year. We would like to share our observations and show our statistics on you. So we're going to tell you how the pandemic affected the real estate market and people. The main trend, you see that the demand from corporate clients has decreased by more than a third since the beginning of the year. I will tell about demand a little bit later. The volume of supply increased by 27% over the last year. In June 2020, there were 17% more requests from corporate clients than in May 2020. And since the beginning of the year, the average supply budget in dollars decreased by 15%, but it's because of changes in the exchange rate. Demand and supply. currently we're seeing high competition in the prime rental market in Moscow. So the last time a higher number of free apartments was only in 2009. In June 2020, number of offers for rent increased by 26% compared to the same period of last year, and by 38% compared to the beginning of last year. From the beginning of the year, requests from potential corporate tenants decreased by 36% if we compare it with the same period of last year, and the largest drop in demand was noted in April 2020. It was time when the lockdown was announced and big international company stopped the relocation processes. Despite these figures, the market has begun to revive. Thus, in June, there were 17% more requests from corporate clients for rental of prime apartments than in previous month, and number of requests from private tenants is also growing. And current activity of private Russian tenants in the real estate market is extremely high. After opening of borders with a number of countries, we expected an increase in demand from corporate clients, but the procedure for entry to Russia for foreigners remains very difficult. And Olga will say about this in her part of presentation. On our chart, there is a slight increase in demand. However, a sharp jump hasn't been observed yet. So the supply exceeded the demand, but searching of accommodation hasn't become very easy. First of all, owners have become more, I'd like to say, more anxious to relate to clients. They have begun to collect the information about potential tenants, and owners of really exclusive apartments have felt their value. There are a few amount of such apartments on market, and their prices remain the same when others have decreased. I'd like to say that we can see a great number of flats which are for rent and for sale at the same time. A number of owners are considering living independently in an apartment as well. So the home finding process is very complicated at the moment because of this this situation. So who is the tenant in this year? 34% of all requests from potential tenants over the first half of 2020s were made by Russian citizens. The other 36% of requests were made by foreigners, and traditionally the largest number of requests came from tenants from France, about 7% of demand. Also among foreign clients, citizens for Germany about 5%, Italy and the USA 4% showed interest in prime real estate, prime apartments. The number of requests from Russia clients this year and are more than we could observe on average in previous year. It's extremely high. There are different versions of causes or reasons of this situation. First of all, we can see some decrease in prices for apartments. Families who plan to rent a flat but postpone such decision could rent them now. And secondly, Russian families who have some enough resources, could rent land to reduce number of people in one apartment. It's because of pandemic. Of course, they decided to isolate some members of the family in another apartment. And of course, Russian clients, Russian private clients, they are competitors in this market, and that's why I told before that it's rather complicated to make home finance in 2020 year, and high competition from Russian private clients is one of the reasons. So the short overview of the most popular areas for living in Moscow. It looks like in previous year, and we can see really big changes from the previous year. The most popular area is Leningradsky Prospect and areas because of lots of offices of big international companies located in this area, from Belaruskaya to Voikovskaya, Sokol Airport, Dynamo. Lubyanka and Kitai-Gorod, Chistyi Pounds area is very popular for foreigners, especially for the clients from France, because the international French school locates in this area. Traditionally, Arbat-Kropotkinsk and Tverskaya Kremlin area is very popular. Patriarchia Pounds, Taganskaya, Zamskvorechye. So let's talk about budgets and rates. It's very interesting to look at average supply budget and demand budget on one picture, because here we can see the difference between, and of course you understand that our mission is to manage expectations of our clients and to try to sign agreements with the best conditions with landlords, because there is a gap between the average supply budget and demand budget. So the rental rates for prime apartments didn't change significantly during the period from March to June 2020, and the average supply budget for June remained at the level of April at 4,400 per property per month. Thus, since the beginning of the year, the value of this indicator in dollars decreased by 15% and in dollars, and by 5% in rubles. Over the last year, the average supply budget decreased by 17% in dollars and by 8% in rubles. The average demand budget was 3,700 per property per month. At the same time, there has still been interest in renting ultra premium apartments. For example, in May, it was time of lockdown, as I remember, yeah, in May. There was a request for renting an apartment with a budget of 14,000 per property per month. It's very high budget for apartment. And I'd like to tell you about changes in real estate market that we managed to do this year. I will tell about rent negotiations. The closing of state borders led to a decrease in demand for high-price apartments. And seeing this situation from the inside, we decided to try to bring the market in line with economy. At the end of spring, there was a trend in commercial real estate market to reduce rates and provide rental vacations. But there was no such trend in the residential real estate market. So from, and as I said before, we decided to make these changes. From April to June, we have had more than 100 negotiations with apartment owners aimed to reducing rental rates or providing rental vacations. And as a result, 25 companies agreed to make some negotiations. And we made it from behalf of these companies. And as a result, according to the result of first half of 2020, the total saving for our clients amounted more than 130,000 USD for clients. And we think that it's really good results. And our clients asked us about risks of such negotiations, and they asked how the owners react on such requests. The owners reacted on such requests differently. Some were willing to cut back by investing in long-term partnership. Some gave discount after negotiations, and some of them refused. But at the same time, it's important to know that a relation with any owner were not damaged, and not a single negotiation led to termination of contract. And the following should be noted. This year we found in each person those character traits that existed before. What I'd like to say that if the owner showed a partnership approach during the lease term, negotiations with him were easier and more productive during the pandemic. However, if the owner was initially inclined to non-partner behavior, cooperation with him often led to conflict, especially at the stage of termination. And as a lawyer, I had lots of complicated cases on the stage of termination of the contract. These issues connected with returning of the security deposit or returning of prepaid but not used amounts. And now I got about 10 complicated cases that I manage for our clients, and 3 of these cases are on the court stage. So I talked about this psychological characteristic of landlords, and our consultants always take into consideration these psychological characteristics, and at all stages of interaction with owners, they make every effort to achieve win-win. And we've got education plan of our consultants, and we teach them how to manage negotiations, how to get win-win, and they are very good in legal sphere of their work. So this is short information of real estate market in this year about negotiations, and I will stop this demonstration. Or how much prices for apartments in Moscow have grown this year, according to your data. Tan says 5%, but that looks like a little lie. Yeah, I understand the question. It depends. If we discuss the premium part of real estate market, we can see that there is some decrease in these prices. But as I said, the really prices for really exclusive apartment remain unchanged in some districts. For example, if the apartment locates near the French school and it's big, for example, 3 or 4 bedrooms apartment, the price for such apartment didn't change from the previous year. The average price of premium apartments decreased but if you use analytics from Cian, I think that this analytics is about all market, including cheap apartments and prices for these apartments really increased in the second half of this year. I think that 5% is, yeah, it's. I think it sounds realistic, but we're talking about premium real estate market, and it's the prices decreased.
I had a question. Thank you, Andrey, for that. I had a question also regarding the nationality of tenants. You showed that 34% of today's tenants are Russians.
Yeah.
You had 5% and 3% and 2% are other nationalities. And if you add all of those percentages, you come up with something around 54. So that makes me wonder, where is the missing percentage? Is it Ukrainians, for instance, or is it Eurasian people that make up the missing 46%, or is it a bunch of Westerners? Why do the percentages only add up to 54 in that slide?
I think we'll check it in our Excel file because I think that it's about other nationalities, and I think that our designers just copy paste part of this table to this slide.
Okay, so because there's a big chunk that isn't accounted for there, so that would be other, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll check. We'll check. Thank you for this comment.
Sure. So anyway, that's the final question that we have for Andrey. We will now turn to our second speaker. Hang on just a second. And this is Diederik Arnold, the Director for Occupier Solutions of ILM. Diederik, the floor is yours. Please begin speaking.
Okay, thank you guys. Good morning. Let me switch on the presentation. So, first of all, good morning. Thank you for having me saying a couple of words about the commercial real estate market in Moscow. As for myself, I came to Russia in the early 2000s. I've been permanently in Moscow since 2007. And I would say the last almost 10 years I've been working in the commercial real estate market, one part of retail, but most of my last years in the office commercial real estate market. I represent the company ILM. ILM is a pure Russian real estate consultancy company. At the moment, we have an office in Moscow and St. Pete, about 100 staff. And my role is to mostly try to do business with the foreign companies operating in the Russian real estate market. And main focus is on office. As for ILM, the business is split at, I would say 70% is Russian clients and approximately 30% is foreign clients.
Please get a little closer to your microphone, Diederik. It's a little hard to hear you. Just to get a little closer to the microphone if you could.
Is it better now, Nathan?
A little better, yeah. The closer the better.
Okay. Try to speak a bit more loud then. As for ILM, as I said, Russian real estate company, active in the market since the last 10 years. Currently, we are growing. I will explain a little bit why, based on this year's tendencies in the market. In my presentation, I will touch base basically on the three main sectors of commercial real estate. It's office, retail, and warehousing. Let's start with the office part. 2020 has been a very remarkable year. I think everybody has seen it, experienced it, or felt it personal or business-wise. I would say for us as real estate consultant, it's actually one of the best years we've ever had. Despite the pandemic, it forces and created a lot of changes on the market we see today. If we look at the office market, in the beginning of the year, the demand was pretty stable. Then we got the pandemic entering, let's say, March into the market. And it was a kind of wake-up call or shock for, I don't know, most of the occupiers in the Moscow real estate market. Everybody was faced with restrictions. People had to start working remotely. It created and it stimulated a lot of changes in business operations. The big side effect of that is that despite the already good demand, the demand for office space actually further increased. We see the effect that due to the pandemic, people forced start working at home or remotely. And we see a lot of clients having a huge office space that they actually do not occupy, that they actually don't need. So I would say 95% of our clients are starting to look at, okay, what can we do to save money? How can we reduce our office space? And where can we find better alternatives that comply better with the, I would say, health and safety regulations in order for people to work safely, but also for us as a company to not have major expenses on huge offices or leases. In the same time, the supply of office space to the market has also slightly increased. Initially, it was promised to be delivered approximately 400,000 square meters of office space to the market. In the end, it turned out to be less, which also partly is caused by a pandemic. However, the properties that are being delivered to the market is mostly A class, and it's getting less and less B plus or B class. This is due to the fact that developers are looking what they want to build, and they still see that due to the demand, occupiers demand good quality building. So they rather invest the money in building an A quality property, whereas they know that it will be rented out with reasonable rents and they will return the money they've invested. What we see in this year is approximately 41,000 square meters of A class being delivered, about 100,000 square meter B plus. This is not just office, this is also mixed use, so it could be combined with retail or with hotel. Although hotel business at the moment is very difficult, as we understand. Which brings us a total at this moment about 141,000 square meters. We still expect in the coming months a couple of buildings to be delivered. This is more about the office dynamics. So if we see the last, I would say, 10 years, the supply to the market has kind of decreased, especially in office. As I mentioned earlier, it was promised about 400,000 square meters, but actually it's been only put to the market about 300,000 square meters. So yeah, we still see I would say, supply to the market, although it could be a bit more. It has different reasons. It has pandemical reasons. It has financial reasons. Developers also more and more focus on development of properties more to the third ring or after the third ring. But still, it's difficult to find the right place, to find the right plot, and it takes a lot of time. This gives you an idea of properties that are being built and delivered at the moment, where we see they really go outwards of the center, in the northern part, eastern part of Moscow. Some of the projects you probably heard about, you probably know. If you have any questions about these, feel free to ask me. any additional information can be provided. Most of it is A class. In minor consensus, it's focused on B class. As a side effect of the pandemic, we've also seen the major trend in the market of rapidly growing companies in co-working solutions or flexible working solutions due to the high demand. I think most of our clients are considering the possibility to downsize the office or to give up the office lease and to switch fully to a co-working solution where you take maybe 50% of the amount of space you need and you work on a rotation scheme. So we have the management popping up into the office maybe 2 days a week. If it's sales related, they can work in shifts. So people are more and more focusing and tending to go to a co-working or flexible office solution. The amount that we put to the market is, I would say, increased by 1.5 times since the beginning of the year. And you find all kinds of different locations. Also, I have to say that among the co-working solutions, there's a lot of differences in quality. You have the expensive ones like WeWork, SOC, this kind of providers. They are big. They have the financial budgets to occupy large spaces and convert them into workable solutions. However, there's also a lot of supply on the market, like the average level. If we compare, for example, pricing for a premium co-working, it's approximately between 30,000-40,000 rubles per desk per month plus VAT. If we go to an average class co-working solution, it's approximately between 20 and 30,000 rubles per desk per month. It can get lower. It also depends on the amount of desks that you need. Anyway, it's a booming trend, and if you as a company would consider such thing, it's interesting to look what's available on the market. As for the rental rates in office real estate in the markets in the beginning of this year, the rates were going up. Then we had the pandemic crushing in, and people were being forced, okay, what do we do with our office? So they immediately started to negotiate with the landlords. I would say that the majority of landlords is quite reasonable on the market. They are going into discussion with the tenants and see how they can, I would say, give discounts. The discounts are not that big though, usually between 10–20%. If it's a very, very big occupier, the landlord might be more reasonable, it might be more flexible in thinking about creative solutions. Also, discounts are not giving for 1 year periods. They were given for 3 months, for 6 months, with the option to review what the market is doing at the moment. So as we see in the second quarter, the rental rates dropped, but after the quarantine period is finished, people starting to get back to the office, the demand increased, so the rental rates also slowly increased. As for A class, the rates you see mentioned here, it's an average rate. It's about 26,500 ruble. I know that in some business centers, the rates are much higher, but this is an average. For B class, same, and for B minus, same. Okay. Now, this is an example of new offices opening up on the market. This is not co-working. These are companies themselves that are thinking and looking into the market, what they want to do next. We have a couple of clients really thinking about the next 5 years in the market. How do we work with such circumstances? How big space do we occupy? This is an example of Raiffeisen. They completely built their new office for themselves, for, let's say, more the IT background of the business, but taking into account a lot of, let's say, rules and regulations to let people safely work. So keeping distance, giving more amount of square meter per person in the office, to work with flexible schemes, rotation schemes. Designs are more open. As we see, I have to admit that this approach to the view of the future office is more taken into account by the Western clients operating in the market. I would say that the big Russian companies renting office space, they honestly speaking pretend to care, but factually they do not really take very precautious measures about employees inside the office. They still continue to work the same way. They might put 30% of their staff at home, but factually not really much change. Whereas I see where the Western clients, they really try to take into account how do we take care of our employees. maybe I don't want to hurt anybody, but it's what I've seen on the market. Okay. Second part of this topic, it's more about retail. I think everybody has seen that specifically when the pandemic started in the city center of Moscow, majority of retail has closed down. People were, being forced to sit at home. I would say the retail sector has mostly been hit in the city center of Moscow. Most of the popular streets like Arbatskaya, Garden, Myslinsky, Parkovka, they've really faced some difficult times. However, these days we heard signals also from Moscow government that they do not really want to have a second lockdown. So they will try to stimulate and help local business to keep open and to stay open as much as possible, and taking into account a safe way of operating. If we look at retail in the, sleeping areas of Moscow Spalny Rayon, around the third ring or further, retail has not much been affected. It's due to the fact that the majority of staff working at office is living in these areas, and when they have to stay at home, they anyway have to buy their products, they anyway have to go for shopping. So in these areas, retail has less been affected than in the city center. This is some of the difficulties faced by tenants in retail, but actually also in office. In retail, a lot of tenants had difficulties in paying the rents due to the close down and due to the lack of footfall. On the other hand, landlords have been more flexible, I would say, on the retail part and the office part, more understanding towards their tenants. Usually really giving good discounts, 50% up to 70%, because they understand that it's rather to keep your tenant operating in some way than closing down the premise and losing your income. However, some landlords are not able to do that, and this is purely due to the, I would say, economical restrictions they have on the building. They have loans, they need to repay these loans, and they cannot afford a full close down or big discounts toward the current tenants. However, in general, I would say that in retail markets, the consensus between tenant and landlord is more reasonable than the office market. Office market, the demand is high. There is many ways for occupiers to negotiate and to get what they want. The third part of commercial property market I'd like to touch is the warehouse market. What we've seen due to the pandemic, there's an incredible growth in e-commerce and food retail. Everybody's staying at home. You have to order food online, or at least in some way you have to order things online. So what we've seen also from the investment side or from the real estate market side is that from these three markets, office, retail, warehouse, office and warehouse are really the least affected by all the current market situation of pandemics and COVID. Due to the increase of demand in warehouse, the supply is growing. Investors find it more and more interesting to build warehouse solutions because the demand is high and the rental rates are good, so the returns are even higher than the loans they have to repay to the banks for these investments. On the other hand, as I said, due to pandemic situation, there has been a boom into the demand for such properties. Supply is coming to the market, but it's still lagging behind. So there's also quite low availability of good quality warehouses. And what's being offered to the market by the landlords, it's usually big amount of square meters. So landlords are offering from 10,000 square meters, which are taken up by the market very quickly. On the side, a couple of numbers we expect. 140,000 square meters delivered now. We expect another couple of 100,000 square meters to be delivered in the next 3 to 6 months. Most focus on A and B class. This is, as I mentioned before, the main drivers for the demand in warehouse is food and e-commerce. They've taken up more than 50% of the properties available at the moment. And another point I mentioned is that many developers or investors are more and more switching to this market because of the stable growth, the stable demand, and the favorable financial situation to start such a project and to return your investment. Okay. In general, how we expect what we see, I would say, happening on the market, we do not expect a real second lockdown of Moscow because it's simply not required, not demanded by the market. It's not good for anyone. People try to really take care of their own safety, and we see that business can continue. In office market and warehouse market, the demand is very strong. Everybody wants to, in office markets, save money and try to find a better solution. On one hand, there's a lot of availability, but you really need to negotiate hard to get what you want. In warehouse, the demand is high and it will continue to grow. As another trend we see on the market is that mostly in the Western companies, they start thinking about the future office in the next 5 years. So they try to think about rotational offices, flexible solutions, things that really make, let's say, life of employees more safe and more convenient. Okay. So far, this is about the commercial property market. I'll be happy to answer some of your questions.
Okay, Diederik, I'll ask the first question. This is Nathan.
Yeah.
You know, the retail was not really healthy, I think, before this, at least worldwide. Perhaps in Russia it was better than in other countries, but the so-called retail apocalypse has been going on now for 10 years or 15 years, you know, with consumers more and more turning to the internet, less and less looking for brick and mortar shops. What you seem to suggest is that has been accelerated by the pandemic, which I think is not a surprise to anybody. My question is, how has this changed the actual market for sale of retail properties? Are you seeing large malls, retail centers, and business centers as well on the market for sale? Are you seeing more of that, or is that perhaps a sector they don't cover because you're only involved in rentals?
Well, I'm involved in rentals, but what I see on the market, we definitely see an increase in the supply of shopping malls that being for food for sale on the market. This is simply the fact that retail has been forced to close down. Although at this moment, the footfall returning back to shopping malls is almost as back as where it was in the beginning of the year. We have to
say, I didn't with the microphone. What is the same as it was at the beginning of the year?
The footfall to the shopping malls.
The traffic, you mean?
Yeah, the traffic, yes.
Okay, good.
Although, I mean, yeah, we do see a lot of increase in the amount of property put to the market. On the investment side, I have to say that it's very attractive at the moment to invest into rental business that is being occupied by supermarkets or fast food. So we see more and more.
Those tenants aren't going anywhere.
Exactly. They're not closing down. They can continue to work. So for investors who want to make a buck, this is a good way to, you know, invest your money. It's pandemic proof, I would say.
Okay, great. We don't see any questions in the chat. Or Diederik, are there any other questions? If anybody else has a question, please submit it to the chat right away. Otherwise, we will go on to our third speaker. We're certainly on schedule right now, which is great. I don't see any questions popping up, so let's hang on just 1 second. I have to find my, here we go. So I will then ask our third speaker, Mrs. Olga Makeshina, Director of Immigration Services from Intermark Relocation, to proceed with her presentation. Olga, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, I want to thank you all for joining the event and for your interest in the topics we brought to your kind attention this time. Indeed, the activities of the Russian migration authorities proved to be really unprecedented this year, this strange year, especially in the summer and autumn season. And we'll speak today about the most notable and most sensitive of them. And you are welcome, of course, to ask questions in the chat, first of all, or even one or two questions, as Nathan said, you may ask orally. And my colleague, Anton Taranishin, who is the senior advisor of Immigration Department and the lead of our immigration knowledge team, is also on the panel, and he will make comments on all your questions and to all your inquiries. The immigration presentation is divided into two parts because the rules for the groups of foreigners in question are different for the foreigners abroad and for foreigners in Russia. So let's start with the foreigners who found themselves abroad while COVID-19 rushed into our reality. The most important and the most sensitive question is what is about restrictions on entry into Russia? As for today, restrictions on entry of Russia of foreigners remain in force. And the general rule is that since March 18, foreign nationals were banned from entry to Russia until further notice. And it was the relevant decree of government of the Russian Federation. And for your convenience, for the reference, each slide will be provided with the link and with the on the decree of the government or of the president or some decree from the side of Ministry of Internal Affairs. You will see it just below each slide. The general rule also is that invitation letters as well as consular visas issuance were suspended. But there are exemptions, and you see all the exemptions, the main exemptions, frankly speaking, on the slide, because there are some of them more, but they are not too relevant to our audience and to the highly qualified specialists or other kind of assignees, employees, which are the main category of foreigners as far as our clients are concerned. So the exemptions are those who are allowed to enter Russian Federation. They are highly qualified specialists which can enter under very special state-approved procedure, which was launched in July this year. The same with technical support specialists, which are to follow also the special application procedure, which is enforced for them. Then citizens of Ukraine who are permanent residents of Donetsk and Lugansk republics, the persons who are the holders of permanent residence permits in Russia. And please note that you will see such drawing of the airplane. That it means that these categories of foreigners can enter Russia only via airports. And persons holding permanent residence permit can enter Russia via airports only. Then other categories are so-called private purposes, entering for private purposes, if they are entering for medical institutes to be treated in medical institutions, they must need to have some proving documents from medical institutions at hand while crossing the borders. Then those who have close relatives, the citizens of Russia, they also can enter. And also those who are arriving in connection with the death or illness of a close relative in Russia. And please note that this close relative does not need to be the Russian citizen. In this case, it may be foreign citizen as well. And the rules which is introduced, they define who is close relative. And you will see just the comment below the slide that close relatives are considered to be those close family members. And there are special lists of the citizens of the countries enumerated on the right side of the slide who can enter Russia, but please note only by the flight from respective country. Now these countries are 14 of them, and 3 of them, Serbia, Cuba, and Japan, were added to this list only last week. Now they are 14. Then the next slide. I will speak a little bit about the special application procedure which was introduced for highly qualified specialists as well as for technical support specialists who are the last are arriving to Russia on the business visas with a special purpose which is called technical support purpose. Just to be able to enter Russia and to obtain work permit or invitation letter if needed, the company must submit a request to the ministry, federal ministry, which is responsible for the area of economic activities of this ministry. And please note that under this special application procedure, highly qualified specialists may enter Russia only once, at least for the moment. Maybe there will be some amendments to the law, but not yet. And the most frequently asked questions is the below two. One is, may highly qualified specialist family members also enter Russia together with their principal? From the formal point of view, the presidential decree does not provide for this, but we are elaborating many petitions on behalf of our clients to the relevant ministries. And in this case, we recommend our clients, however, to seek the approval directly from the government who issued that decree. And we recommend to submit a separate argumentative request, namely to Tatiana Golikova, to make it to submit it. We usually submit it in person to the Russian government office, and I can surely say that this meets the success. And we know many precedents when Russian government allows family members to enter Russia along with their principal. The next question is, may HQS and technical support workers from the 14 countries which were enumerated in the first slide also arrive? Yes, they can enter Russia if they have valid visas. But if they are newcomers and they want to obtain work permits and invitations, they need to be put on this state-approved list and to follow just one and the same special procedure, which is applicable to HQS and technical support specialists. The difference between these special procedures, between these two categories of employees, is that, as I have already said, HQS may enter only once, but technical support specialists can enter multiple times and under their multiple entry visas, business visas. And you will see the step-by-step procedure, how this application is taking place, and just the processing times from each step within this procedure. Filling the request to ministry by the company employer. Then, in case the ministry approves this list, then it forwards directly internally to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and to Federal Security Service of Russia. And after that, the foreigner is put on the relevant list on the border, as well as on migration office list. Pakrovka, this is the immigration office, which is responsible for issuance of letters of invitation. And the more important, two important things to bear in mind is that processing time as well as requirements to this petition, to this request to the ministry, may vary depending on the ministry. Sometimes there are some ministries, such as Ministry of Justice, or for example, Ministry of Finance, they refuse to approve such requests, but we approached Russian government for clarifications of this, and they have some communications with the ministries, and now the Ministry of Finance just became a good one, and so they started accepting these requests, but not the Ministry of Justice yet. And one important thing as well, that along with the ordinary documents which you are submitting to the border control, highly qualified employees must have original labor contract signed with the Russian employer at hand while crossing the border. The next slide is devoted to quarantine and COVID testing rules for those who are entering Russia. The general rule is that a mandatory rule is that a foreigner must pass the test prior to arrival in Russia. And the requirements to the test are as follows: that it must be positive antibodies test, but positive antibody test is not sufficient, and PCR test must be presented at the border while bordering. And this test is to be passed not earlier than 3 days before entry, and the test must be provided either in Russian or in English. And some notes are on the right side of the slide. The test is presented to the while boarding the flight, and the second time when you are crossing the Russian border to the border control. And the important issue to be mentioned is that employers, when a foreigner arrives from abroad, the employers, while he is visiting office for the first time, they must check this test, its results, and this is obligation on the side of employers. Then let's, the next issue, the next point is self-isolation requirements. As for now, the requirement for self-isolation is applicable only for those foreigners who are arriving to Russia with the purpose of work. And if you are arriving under another purpose of work, private or business or tourist, you are not required to pass 14 days self-isolation. And also, when you are traveling within Russia, the isolation is not mandatory. And then you will see that the link you will see for, as a reference, the resolution of a chief state sanitary doctor at the bottom of the slide, because it's just the rules which were enforced by the chief state sanitary doctor. The next slide will deal with one very important topic, the most important one among others, which concerns the foreigners who remained in Russia and who are staying in Russia at the moment. You all know that so-called migration amnesty was introduced in starting from March 15, and first it was valid till June 15, and now it is extended for the next time and until December 15 this year inclusive. And the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia provided in summer provided internal recommendation on amnesty rule implementation. The most important of them are displayed here. Which terms are extended? Because indeed, not every term of every document is extended till December 15. The terms which are extended are term of stay and residence in Russia, the validity terms of migration registration, and validity terms of the list of documents which are presented here. They are visa, migration card, temporary residence permit, permanent residence permit, and then refugee, some other certificates. And also extension is applicable to the maximum terms of stay abroad for holders of terminal residence permit and permanent residence permit. You know that those who are holding the long stay documents of another country are in standard times are allowed to stay abroad maximum 183 days, if I'm not mistaken. Anton will correct me if I am wrong. And please pay attention to the fact that you do not see any so-called work documents which are extended. That means that your work permit patents, they are not extended till December 15, and the extension were finalized in June. And that's why they are eligible for extension in the standard mode during standard scenarios, and the foreigners must take care about their work documents, work permits to be extended in due time. Please note that the terms of all these rules are concern only the documents which are expiring during amnesty period. Other documents which that have expiration dates which fall outside amnesty period, they are not extended. They are not subject to extension. And the most important thing is, which is sometimes ignored by many of our clients, that migration register, though validity terms of migration registration is extended, the initial migration registration when you are arriving in Russia is still mandatory. And within regular deadlines, you all know that the deadlines are different for different categories of foreigners. For example, HQS are free of registration within 90 days. But still this registration, the so-called initial migration registration, is to be done. For how long terms are extended? Terms are extended automatically for 276 days, and we tried to make it in infographic how to calculate to make it more clear, more crystal clear. For example, you will see that the amnesty, the start of the amnesty March 15, and then you will have the remaining term of this or the document you are holding, and this remaining term it is stopped. The calculation of this term is stopped on March 15, and it will be extended. Your term will be renewed for calculation starting from December 15. Ministry of Foreign or Ministry of Internal Affairs just simplified this calculation. It means that you have 276 days after the finalization of the remaining term of your document. So if I'm not too clear, then we shall re-explain it in the section of questions and comments. Then the next slide, also about the rules of amnesty. This amnesty also provides the rules for deportation and cancellation of the documents. The general rule is that foreigners still, even during migration amnesty, they still remain liable to administrative sanctions in case they violate these or that legislative rule. But there are some rules which are suspended within migration amnesty. Until December 15, the decisions are not issued about forced administrative expulsion from Russia and about deportation and undesirability of foreign stay in Russia. They will not be issued by migration authorities. But this new period of extended period of migration amnesty has a new rule compared with that in June, that despite the forced administrative expulsion will not be applied in case of administrative violations, a foreigner may be expelled from Russia in the form of so-called self-exit within given deadline. And the deadline for exit in this case will be December 15. Or they say upon transport availability at least. Please mind, and this is important to have in mind, administrative expulsion from Russia, as well as repeated legislation violations on the side of a foreigner may lead to a ban on entry to Russia up to 5 years. The next rule is that cancellation of documents will be suspended till December 15. And you will see the list of documents which apply to this rule. Visas, work permits and work patterns, temporary residence permits, permanent residence permits, and different certificates, for example, a refugee, they will not be never cancelled during the period of amnesty. And the next, some rules, the most important rules of employment within amnesty period. Until December 15, nationals from CIS countries may obtain work permit and may be hired by the employers regardless the date and person of entry to Russia. You know that in standard and regular times, your activities on the territory of Russia must fully accord to the purpose of entry, to your purpose of entry, which is just underlined in your migration card while you are crossing the border. But it's not the case during the migration amnesty. And you may ignore this purpose of entry while being hired by your employer. And the next rule is, if your employer company already holds corporate employment permission, we called it corporate work permit. This is the permission to hire foreign nationals for labor activities. Then you may pretend to have your individual work permit issued, regardless your purpose of entry declared while you were crossing the border. And then the new rule was introduced for the period till December 15, that if while you are in Russia and unfortunately your passport expired, you may leave Russia, the country of your citizenship, for the and I just underline this, for the country of your citizenship only, under this passport, which expired. This rule was introduced because Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia considers, they advise that they consider such passport and visa inside this passport to be valid for exit for 276 days after the expiry. So I think that this is all about the migration topics. So we can start making comments to requests and questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olga, for such a very detailed and meaty presentation, meaning full of information. I will ask quickly, you know, we, the business associations like CERBA, we are charged with writing letters to Golikova and asking for our HQS, our highly qualified specialists, to be allowed to re-enter the country. Are you, as a private company, Intermark, you're also doing letters like that?
On behalf of our clients, yeah? On behalf of our clients.
That's good news. So we can tell people then that they should go to Intermark. Intermark can do this work for them.
Yeah.
Now, when you say on behalf of your clients, you mean that it has to be a client who has hired you for relocation services, or can they hire you specifically to do an HQS clearance?
We are proposing the text of this petition, the arguments. We are compiling the text of petition. We are submitting it either to the government or to the ministry, relevant ministry, but the petition is signed by our client.
Yes, but I'm saying, can anybody do it? I have a friend. He's not a relocation client. He just wants to leave the country. Can he pay you and you will do his HQS certification for him?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It doesn't have to be somebody who is moving into or away from Russia. You know, it doesn't have to be one of your relocation clients.
No. We are working with private clients, with new companies, whatever.
Okay, that's very good information. I didn't know you provided that service. Very good information. We have a lot of questions now. The first one is the simplest question. When will this all end? I think the answer is nobody knows, but Vladimir, his was the first from CERBA Worldwide, said, thanks for the presentation. When do you think that, when do you foresee the elimination of restrictions on entering Russia for all CIS nationals? So he's talking about, I guess, people from Ukraine and Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, so that they can enter Russia, not only from certain countries.
Anton, may I ask you to comment?
Yes, hello everybody. As of now, nationals of some CIS countries, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, are already able to arrive in Russia via airports, by flights from their respective countries. We can expect that probably flights may be resumed with other CIS countries soon. However, as far as it goes about eliminating all restrictions, possibility of entry from any country or possibility of entry into Russia through the land border, it is very difficult to predict because the situation is rather unstable. The number of COVID cases in Russia is growing, so probably this can be expected once there is considerable change in the situation.
Okay, let's move on to the next question, because we're out of time already, but very good question. So Irina Yakusheva says, do I understand correctly that a UK citizen with a valid ordinary work visa, not HQS, can leave Russia for Christmas to go back to London and then return back freely? Is that correct?
Yes, this is correct. By a flight from the UK, it will be possible to return based on a valid work visa.
Okay, I think that's my understanding as well. An anonymous attendee has posed this question. What about Russian citizens working in Kazakhstan on rotation? Are Russian citizens allowed to enter or leave Russia without restriction?
Russian citizens are always free to return to Russia. As for leaving Russia, they are free to leave Russia by plane. However, there are restrictions on exiting Russia through the land border. So they will be able to cross the land border only if they have some grounds.
Okay, I heard you can cross the land border if you're coming in for medical treatment. And some people will buy a puchovka in a sanatorium, so you can, that looks like medical treatment then.
Yes, this is one of possible grounds. Also, they may be allowed to cross the border and leave Russia if they are going to work in another country.
Okay. We have a question from Alec Taylor who says, I'm here on a business visa. Doesn't say whether he's HQS or not, but he says, I'm here on a business visa. I entered August 23rd and my visa expires November 18th. Is that visa automatically extended until December 15th?
Yes, it is subject to extension in accordance with the amnesty rules, so it will remain valid until December 15th and even longer.
Okay. Even longer based on that slide that Olga showed us, 276
Yes,
days from the expiration date.
Yes.
So it should be valid for 276 days after November 18th. Is that right?
Yes, this is what the presidential decree says.
Okay, great. Let's see, it looks like we have one more anonymous question. This is the last one in the list. My colleague HQS is working here. We are trying to obtain the invitations for his family through the ministry and Golikova. He's from Serbia. How is it necessary to get special approval for the family members? And if so, how should we get invitations for them?
If they are nationals of Serbia, it may be possible. We have just recently received information that dependents who are nationals of the countries which have resumed flights with Russia, nationals of these countries may be able to obtain invitations also for dependent visas. So it is possible that it will be, so there is a chance that the company will be able to apply for invitations for Serbian dependents without additional approval.
But it is information just 2 days old information, and we are double checking it with the Pakrovka migration office, who is responsible, because it's very important their personal attitude to such kind of instructions or internal instructions they receive from the upper migration offices. And we are double checking, but it seems that they will start issuing the letter of invitation without any special state approval procedure for dependents as far as these 14 countries are concerned.
But
and Serbia is one of the 14 countries, yeah.
Yeah.
But just in case it doesn't work, there is a possibility to submit a request to the government, to Tatiana Golikova, and we know that there are positive cases when such a request was approved.
Are satisfied. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I want to ask a question then, the last question about entering Russia. If you're married, you have a Russian spouse, for instance, husband or wife, it's enough just to show the wedding certificate on the border, the original wedding certificate, with the translation if necessary. That's enough. You don't need anything else to enter Russia?
Well, a passport, a visa, and this marriage certificate, yes.
Okay. Here's one more question. Are foreigners may freely... Okay, can foreigners transit through Russia to a third country?
Yes.
They are free to transit if they do not leave the airport, the transit area of airport. They are free to transit. Also, CIS nationals, as we advised, may transit from a third country to the country of their citizenship. For other purposes, it won't be possible to transit. So, a foreign national needs to have some other grounds to enter Russia in order to be able to transit through it.
It's always possible to transit if you're not leaving the customs zone, however, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But if you have to switch airports, then that doesn't work because you have to leave customs.
Yes.
Okay, wow. Well, that was a very informative session. We're already 7 minutes late. but I'm going to still allow this to continue a bit more. People that have to go somewhere can drop off the call. We do have one more final question. Says my TRP visa has expired. My application for permanent residence has been accepted. Can I still fly into Russia without a valid visa?
Unless the PRP is already collected, a visa will be needed, I suppose. At least
Yeah, you
some
can't
visa.
enter Russia without PRP and without a visa. That doesn't make sense.
So either a visa or a collected PRP will be needed to cross the border.
Yeah, hi,
Okay.
Nathan. This was my question.
Yeah, we understand.
The other thing is I'm in Russia. My that's the temporary resident permit expired. I applied for the permanent residency. That's all accepted. So actually I'm trapped. I mean, I have to sit here and stay quiet until I receive my permanent residency, correct?
Yes, because without a visa and before you collect your permanent residence permit, you will not be able to cross the border.
Yeah, no, I mean inside Russia. If I want to fly to Sochi or to St. Petersburg, for example.
Yes. There is also visas are considered extended in accordance with the amnesty, so it will be okay to travel within Russia, and even if it expired during the amnesty period, it even may be possible to leave the country.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you, Diederik, that for instance, during the time period when my PRP was being extended, I didn't have a passport for a short time and I didn't have my PRP, but I could fly domestically. I just had to show some other form of ID. You need to talk to the airline, and that's
Okay.
usually airline. But if you talk to the airline, you know, maybe a driver's license, even a foreign driver's license is acceptable. Maybe not. You need to talk to the airline in advance.
Okay, thank you.
They just need to confirm who you are, really. They don't need you to cross the border if you're flying to Sochi.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, as I say, that was an excellent and very informative session. I want to thank Andrey, thank Olga, thank Anton, and thank Diederik for the excellent presentations they gave, for enlightening us on so many diverse and important issues today. Gosh, we talked about residential real estate. We talked about warehousing. We talked about retail. We talked about office. We talked about migration, about border crossing. We talked about everything. We covered all the bases. I think we need to have an event like this once a month, really, because things are changing so much. So, and lastly, I'll thank Ruslan and Marina Semyonova from Intermark Relocations for hosting the event this morning. I think, as I say, it's been very informative for all of us. And let me encourage all of you to continue attending CERBA events. Please stay with us throughout the pandemic. We will continue to consider the needs of our members first and foremost. We are doing most of our events online these days, but they will continue to be relevant. And I think we can all agree today's event was relevant. This was a very, very information-packed and useful event, I think. So thanks to all the presenters for their time and for their effort in preparing these presentations. And we will look forward to seeing you sometime in the not too distant future.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you,
Everybody
guys.
have a nice day. Yep, the session is hereby ended. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.